go where no news will have been going before. Here's AL24 on the Zionist entity.
Volume about the so-called Israel democracy. It speaks also volume about the kind of system, this colonial system that this entity has established over the years. And now these are perhaps a sign of a crumbling of the system. It is a long ways, but it certainly shows a strong indication that not all is well, that when we talk about democracy in Israel, we're actually talking about some specific people. There are the Israeli state segregates along racial lines. For example, if you're an Ashkenazi Jewish, you are citizen number one, and then underneath you is a Sephardist, and then the Arabs or the Palestinians.
Those who live. Evidence. No one can dispute the evidence. We heard the evidence. We saw the evidence.
Inside, to the Algerians, this is typical. It's a colonial system that we lived for so many years under colonialization.
Sure.
This is the same thing. Along with that, it speaks also volume of the extent to which we are now talking about problems within Israeli society, within this entity. And for a while, the state was, just as an example, until mid-90s, the perception among the old generation, the Israeli Zion and Ishaq Rabin and so on and so forth, they believed that to get peace and stability and is to be recognized by the Arab world. Well, that philosophy in '96 changed when the Israelis shifted the focus of the peace process from land for peace to security for peace. And at that point, Israel started to build an arsenal of military, as always. I mean, you had the dome, the wall. This is all to give a sense of security
what is this nothing you
for
talk
the
about?
Jewish states. And then you have this. This is an internal problem that says that those security measures are not enough to keep these colonial states in a Palestinian land and discriminating the Palestinians.
And how do you read the delay of the judicial overhaul plan here? Is it just a move to, let's say, ease the anger of the people?
It is the anger of the people, but historically, if you look at, as an example, when Ehud Barak ran for elections the second time, I believe, he failed because he ran, or he was talking about, or in his campaign about putting some restrictions on some of the privileges that the Orthodox Jews were getting. The Orthodox Jews don't work. They are there to pray and to meditate, to protect the religion. This is what they believe, and the idea, and they were supported by the states. The Ehud Barak raised the issue of restricting those privileges. He was met with a strong reaction, and as a result, one of the variables that led to his failure in that elections against Ariel Sharon was his inclusion in his campaign, the discussion of the privilege that the Orthodox Jews. This is a similar when you start addressing issues that pertain to issues of identity, of a certain privilege, you tend to get this kind of reaction. Netanyahu what really at the end was to save himself from the court, because he is under investigation, or was under investigation. So curbing the power of the legislators was a way of doing that. The other thing that you have to consider is that the court, to a large degree, and this entity has ruled in favor of what some may call the Palestinians, the Arab Palestinian, particularly when it comes to expropriation of land, and in particular, when the far right is now talking about, let's get rid of the Palestinians from this land. They don't exist. They call them all sort of name. This would require a legislation, and certainly what the far right was thinking is, if we go that path, the court might stop us from doing just that. The point is this: so there is some personal in this that pertains to Netanyahu. There is also the fundamental issue of the Palestinians being given the right, another tool to exploit the Palestinians, and some sees it as an infringement on the powers of the court. So it's been for months, as you know, for weeks, this demonstrations. It hasn't gotten to this level, but we are seeing it grow, and even though the Prime Minister has retracted, the demonstration seems to continue.
Very nice. And is it an exaggeration, Dr. Hamoud Sarhi, to say that there are possible signs of disintegration of the entity here?
You know, this entity is based on contradictions. You have identity contradictions, where identities are
your inconsistencies are glaringly obvious.
According by how European, if you want to say, are. So the Ashkenazis are on the top. They have all the privileges. You have the Sephardis of Northern Africa, of African, Ethiopian, other places, origins are viewed less and less. So you have the contradiction. You have this contradiction. The second contradiction is the social disparities, the economic conditions, the inequalities among this entity's social structure, and that's also play a major role. And the other thing, that one factor that we seem to ignore, the Israeli population has grown and has changed its dynamic since the collapse of the former Soviet Union. Up to 1988, the population was somehow, in a sense, cohesive, even though there are so many contradictions coming from a different. This is a population that comes, that comes under the premise of the right of return. So you come to Palestine, you're given a land, you get given a monthly payment, you're rewarded, and you're given sort of money to settle in, to do all of that. So that population is a fabricated population that comes from a different segment and different part of life. But up to 1988, there was a belief that population, for example, was leaning toward the perception that if we can coexist with the Palestinians, if we can coexist with the Arabs, we can live in peace. But then you have the wave of Jews from the former Soviet Union, and suddenly you had about 800,000 people, Jewish, coming from the former Soviet Union. The dynamic, and these Jews were told, this is your land, and at that moment you start to see an extremism leaning towards yeah, exactly. So the far right can be described in that context. The Israelis have adapted to international pressure, and this is the first time, which might be different because you have an internal pressure So for the international pressure, one of the things that the Israelis learned from their war in 1967, where they were sort of criticized internationally, and they became sort of a villain in the eye of international law. And what the Israelis did after that is start to think of wars as a limited wars. Mm-hmm. So have we seen attacks in Lebanon, on the southern Lebanon, as you have this limited wars in Gaza against the Palestinians, and the attacks on the West Bank using the settlements to achieve Israeli goal of taking all over the Palestinians' land. This latest far right movement is on record believing that that the Palestinians have no presence in this land and this part, and they should take their the lands of all the Palestinians. They should kick them out, and Palestinians have no rights. Mm-hmm. That is so you have all of these ideas that the Israelis are always worried about the external perceptions, because their survival depends on this idea that they are a democracy, which, as we've seen, was never a democracy. Just ask any Palestinian, ask the entire world community that sees Israel as a state that is in constant violation of human rights, and so on and so forth. So there's clear example of that. I think where this is going is that there is certainly a problem with the Israeli internal system, internal structure. The Israelis will have to look into this, whether this is a Netanyahu problem. Because remember, it's Netanyahu that has pushed for this judicial reforms. And he pushed for the judicial reforms because of his personal problems, meaning that if he's able to nominate the judges that he wants, or the Knesset is able to nominate the judges, then he is free from any repercussions, or he will try to use his ways to get away with the violation of the laws that he's allegedly been been under. So you have these internal forces that this is the new thing. So how Israel will emerge on that, it depends on how the internal forces will come together. Ishaq Rabin used to say when he in the Knesset during his time, he had only a slim majority of one vote or a little bit less or more, and he said the Israeli state was always on collapse. But because they are on the verge of constantly of a fear of losing, they maintain their solidarity. So there is a lesson to learn, but also a lesson to learn from here is the fact that this is new. This is not sort of something that Israel have lived, but more than anything else, when you put it in the context of Israeli security, this is the first time when Israel is being hit from inside, and it's exposed the inequalities and the disparities and the problems on which this Zionist colonial state has been created. And eventually, like any colonial states, the end is there, if not sooner, it's later. Beam me